welcome everybody to day 2 of virtual facilitation. It's nice to have you back. We are going to kick off today with another do now called Holy Scrap. And so here's how this goes. What I'd like you to do is to choose one object in your surroundings that has some meaning for you. And you're going to show it off as a show and tell. And so go ahead and take a look around your environment, pick a thing that you'd like to show off. And then using video, what we're going to do is go around and have everyone show off their object and the meaning behind it. And while you're doing this, we're going to practice active listening. So giving the speaker attention, going on and off mute, showing virtual appreciation. And so what I mean by that is that you can either choose to show virtual appreciation by using some comments in chat, or if you want to use your own video and give a thumbs up or a high five or something like that, practicing using some virtual appreciation for each other as you go around. And then I should say the fourth thing that we're going to practice is also self-facilitation, which is to say paying attention to the order that we're actually going to go in. And what I mean by that is that I'll go first, and then Amanda will know that it's up to her to go next to show off her object, and then so forth. Okay? So let's just do a quick tech check. Can everyone see my screen? Please give me a thumbs up if you can. Awesome. So that means that hopefully you can see my screen and know the order that we're going to be doing Holy Scrap in. And before I launch into it, let me give credit where credit is due. Holy Scrap is a part of a much broader body of knowledge by a gentleman by the name of John Ward, who is somebody who has a really special place in my heart. He's the first graphic recorder I ever saw. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go first. So if you would, please put your attention on me. So this is the object that I'd like to share. So this is Mechagodzilla, who is, as always, Godzilla's major nemesis. And the reason that I like Mechagodzilla is because, number one, Godzilla but a robot. So you put those two things together. How cool is that? And then the other thing, the reason that he's significant to me is because this was the first thing that I bought after reading Marie Kondo's book, The Art of Tidying Up. And I really had to do that thought to think, does this bring me joy? And I looked at it sitting there in the comic book store, and I thought, yeah, this could really bring me joy. And so now every time I see Mechagodzilla, I think, this brings me joy. Okay? So that's Mechagodzilla.
Awesome. Well, I'm Amanda, and my object in my office is my figurine of Leslie Knope from the television show Parks and Recreation. Leslie is a passionate public servant who just dives into all things that she does with vigor and enjoys public forums and soliciting feedback from her community. I am not the most comfortable public speaker, and so every time I have to do something that makes me a little uncomfortable and pushes me outside of my comfort zone, I always think, what would Leslie Knope do? How would she react? How would she get to work? And having her on my desk inspires me to dive into the work with all of that passion and none of the reservation.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea. I went with something really easy to show off and use, my lovely tapestry back here. It's a woven tapestry, and it's huge. I never thought I'd have something that big up on my wall, but I got it in South Africa when I was a kid. We lived there for a few years. So it was one of those things that came back and made it up onto the walls back home.
Hi, everybody. This is Doug. You're probably not going to be able to see the whole thing here. This is my what's called a gi. I practice Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I've been doing it for about 3 years. And what I absolutely love about this martial art is that it teaches the weak and smaller person how to defend themselves from the larger, more aggressive person, and I'm a big fan. I think it's good for everybody.
Hi, it's Irit. If I were in my office, I would show you 2 posters that I have up that say, love what you do what you love. Because in really stressful moments, I just sort of reflect on them, but I'm not. I'm actually home, and so I'm going to show you my Cookie Monster. We call this Baby Cookie Monster. It is the first cake topper that my son had at his first birthday party, and it's somehow always around in this living room, and it just sort of reminds me of the balance that's important, especially when I work from home. And I love cookies.
So in the middle guy, your Godzilla, because like they're presented, and I felt like some actions of this guy, but it also was conquering conquering monsters and making the world a better place. And right now, I chose this amongst the many on my desk right now because this is kind of the way I feel that I'm going through life right now with my family. A lot of them asking me to do a lot of conquering for them and making their world a better place.
Okay, I have these all over my office. You can see over my shoulder here, but mine is a mini asset map, and I've saved every asset map I've ever done in any course. I used to have some in the dining room because I thought my kids should see how other people feel about me. And after a year, my husband's like, it needs to come off the dining room wall. So I have these all over my office, but a mini one here just to remind me of who this work is for and how this work can really impact people.
Hey everybody, this is Lisa. I'm realizing I need to do some more office decorating, but for purposes of this exercise, I'll just show you a picture. That's my husband, Grant. That was taken on the day that we got engaged, and it's something that makes me really happy to look at, so I keep it right by my desk.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Oops, who's next? Oh, I'm sorry, Rebecca's next.
That's okay. I've been slow on the unmuting. Hi, everybody. I'm Rebecca. This is, you can't really see it, but this is new paint, which is going to be on my new office wall in hopefully 48 hours from now, which is hopefully symbolic of new starts and new beginnings and fresh ideas and hopefully new successes for my business. So hopefully soon it will go from in this package to on the wall behind me.
Well, Rebecca, I'm so glad you went first because I've been trying to decide what to pick, and I'm going to pick this to show you, which is fabric with trim. I'm trying to decide what curtains to put in my room to soften the room and make it cozier and more inviting, and whether to have this trim go on it or not. I'm thinking the trim looks a little too dark with the fabric, but I need to decide today too. That's what I'm sharing today.
Hi, it's Judy. So I have a lot of stuff on my desk. So the thing I want to show is this is called a perpetual calendar, I guess. I'll turn so you can see what it is. And in fact, I just adjusted the date to be today's date. And what's significant about this is that my husband and I met at work when I moved to DC in 1974. And he gave me that as a present in 1974. And I actually lost it in the house, and I got it again. And I like to look at it, first of all, because it's something that I got a long time ago. And, you know, when you're young, you don't think about the future. You don't think, well, those years are going to pass. And finding it now was just like a time capsule, and I really love it. And it reminds me to take the long view, that we could look at, you know, how important things are for today, but to get some perspective on what I need to do in the future.
Can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me now? Okay. Hi, this is Shana. This is a print. This is the first printmaking that I ever did when I was an undergrad in art school, and I keep it on my desk at home because it reminds me that, one, I am a creative person, two, that everything has a process, and three, imperfections are beautiful.
Hi, this is Colin. I have a little card that you probably can't read, but it's all about the ENFP and things that stress us out and get us spinning, one of which is endless detail and too many details. And I'm noticing that I'm reacting to the level of detail that online facilitation is going to require of me to be able to do this well, and pre-planning and really getting specific and getting the sticky note. Like, all of this is just stressing me out, and I'm glad I'm here.
Hi, team. I guess it's my turn, Sarah. So I guess the easiest thing right here is behind me, there's this sketch of Angkor Wat in Cambodia with the monks standing in front of the temple. And it's very meaningful to me. I went there with my husband. He's actually there right now with a lot of work things. So it's a way to have a little personal meaning and take a bit of him along my work journey. And then over here, sorry about the mess, there's a big bulletin board. I don't know if you can see it over there. And it's covered with cards, with thank you cards. And I always put the most recent cohort that we wrapped up with at George Mason, where I certify executive coaches. I always put those gratitudes up on my board until the next cohort goes through. And that way I get a little piece of all the new coaches that are out there in the world doing this great work, like what we're doing. And I love that board of gratitudes. It's very meaningful.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. And Alexis sent me a note and said that she's actually participating from a public library. So we're going to assume that she's going to be on cruise control for most of the day today. Okay. All right. So let's go up to the balcony then. Holy Scrap. Talk to me a little bit about Holy Scrap. What's the utility of it? How could you see yourselves using it? What did you like about it? Any reactions? You can either go off mute or you can use the chat for that.
It's totally easy. That's what I love. Like, and you could do it pretty spur of the moment. It's quick and builds connection. So that's a really, I like it.
Cool. And thank you, Colin. And thank you for revealing yourself as an ENFP. I'm not an ENFP, but I play one on TV when I'm facilitating. And yeah, you know, having that personal connection to people is pretty great. Ray says, I was worried it would take too much time, but it didn't. Right. If you give people the time limit where you say, okay, we're going to try to keep this to 30 seconds, people do a pretty good job of that. Making connections to others, loving how quick it is. Yeah, it's just kind of a nice way to, it's an icebreaker, and it's also a little bit of behind the curtain. It's a way to practice good, if I could say, virtual etiquette. You know, so we're making sure that we're having that one-step pause, we're keeping each other on and off mute, and, you know, paying attention, doing some active listening there. Okay, so we're going to zoom down to this, and for right now, and by the way, let me just say I got a lot of feedback from a lot of people on the workshop yesterday, and so I was up late last night. I completely retooled today in response to that feedback. So I hope you like what I'm about to share with you. In a lot of ways, a lot of the things you're about to see are brand new, but I think it'll work pretty well for this group and where we're at. So this is the new agenda for today. Here's where we are. We're working on the meeting startup, which is this template. We're going to move into an activity that's called morning percolations. Then we will do a Modality Expo. One of the things that I love working about Ray and the people that have worked with Ray is that they seem to have a toolbox of modalities, of different facilitation activities. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time this morning, I should say this afternoon, gathering and harvesting the modalities that you already have that apply well to the virtual context. But the bulk of the day is going to be spent in an activity that I'm calling Make It Visual, where you're going to have the chance to do group work. One of the big requests that I had was to practice setting up and working in breakouts in Zoom. So you're going to have the chance to do that in an activity that I'm calling Make It Visual, where you're going to take a modality that you know in the room, and then working with your peers, turn it into something that works in the virtual space. And I'll explain how we're going to do that once we get in there. I'll share a few more resources. We'll do checkouts close at 2 o'clock, and then we'll open up for office hours. Okay. I'll keep rolling, but if you have any questions with regards to the agenda, go ahead and put them into the chat. Outcomes are the same as yesterday. Roles are the same as yesterday. I tweaked the principles just a little bit. Yesterday, I showed a few principles for virtual facilitation writ large, a few just for this workshop for the rest of the day. One is you can either be on cruise control, as we're going to assume Alexis is going to be just because she's joining from the quiet of a public library, or you can actually take the wheel and try out some of these activities hands-on. We're going to zoom out. We're going to go up to the balcony and look at why we're doing some of these things. And then one of the things I'm going to make a request of, please use Zoom for chat. Zoom's chat for troubleshooting and asking questions as much as you possibly can. I have a lot to cover today, and there's a lot of work that you have to do. And it helps me stay on track in terms of time and the flow today if you favor the use of chat over going off of mute. Okay? If there's something that's burning and you have to use your phone for that, then that's fine. But again, if you can, try to use Zoom's chat for troubleshooting and asking questions. Principles for virtual facilitation, minimizing transitions. We're going to have no transitions today. So today we're going to work entirely off of Zoom. And by the way, let me go ahead and drop the link. And I wanted to do it this way. Let me show you, if you choose to use Mural as a platform, here's how you do it so that anybody can log into Mural, okay? So you're going to want to go to share, just like this. And then rather than inviting people, because it's going to ask people to log in and so forth, you're going to want to do the anonymous link option. And then where it says share anonymous link, you're going to click on copy link. And if you notice, it says, among others, the link permissions include anyone with the link, no sign up required. And that's exactly what we're after, okay? And if you do it that way, then if I drop it right into the Zoom chat or anywhere else, anybody can log in this way, and they won't have to actually have an account on Mural. So that's exactly how you do that. And by the way, I went ahead and dropped it into the Zoom chat. You can go ahead and join me in Mural. I will also, for the purpose of recording this, I'll keep sharing my screen. So for example, Alexis, if you'd like to just share my screen, if that's a little bit easier for you, you can keep looking at my screen, but in order to interact with what's there, you're going to want to join me on Mural, okay? So we're going to minimize transitions, and then the rest of these I shared yesterday. Technique trumps technology. Start simple, then go big. We're going to be patient with ourselves, with each other and the technologies, and to be curious, wondering, I wonder what will break today. Okay? All right. So the first thing that we're going to do, well, before I launch into this, and please use chat, any questions with regards to the agenda, outcomes, roles, or principles for today before we actually jump into it? I have my beverage. I'm going to do a one-sip pause. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move into morning percolations then. Now, morning percolations is one of my favorite activities. I do this anytime I have a multi-day event. And it always starts at the beginning of the second day. Okay. And so here's how this goes. Morning percolations is a way to kick off a day in a way that gives participants really time and space to empty their mental, and I should say emotional backpacks, to allow them to be fully present and engaged. And it begins with open-ended questions. So as you were thinking about what we talked about yesterday, what's coming up for you? What were some of the things that you took away from the day yesterday? Maybe as you were preparing dinner or breakfast this morning, getting ready to go to bed, getting ready to come into work today. What was coming up for you as you reflected over the content of the workshop? In other words, what's percolating up for you? And so during morning percolations, which we're going to do, you can practice a few of the different skills. So one of them is to share whatever's coming up for you. A second is to practice active listening. And then the third is to do group note-taking. And I would highly encourage people to practice some group note-taking using Mural. And so here's what that looks like. If you'd like to practice group note-taking, use sticky notes to capture the ideas of others. So read what other people are sharing, also to avoid any duplicates. So if somebody says, you know, yesterday was really hard, we only need to capture that once, right? And then if you're also observing the notes, cluster any similar ideas. And so those of you that have worked with a scribe or a graphic recorder, now everybody's going to have the chance to practice some note-taking, capturing what you hear, okay? Now let's do it this way. So I'm seeing somebody write all together. So here's what I would say. For the purposes of morning percolations, for this, let's share verbally whatever's going on and give others the opportunity to capture your words, okay? So despite what I just said about sharing in the chat, for morning percolations, if you have something that's percolating up for you, go ahead and take yourself off mute, share whatever's coming up, we'll have a discussion, and we'll give others the chance to record using sticky notes what it is that we have to say, okay? Is everyone clear on the instructions on this one? And we're gonna go until just about 12:30 for this, so just about 10 minutes, okay? So with that, what's percolating up for you? Go ahead and take yourself off mute. What's coming up?
For me, I think it was a little complicated seeing your setup and all the devices you use and trying to think how I could do that on a single device or a single computer. It's nice to be able to have all those screens, but it's the how can you do it without all that? The switching back and forth and everything.
Mm-hmm. Did anyone else have a similar thought that it's my setup is complicated and it's got to be simpler to do it? I'm seeing some nods from folks. Yeah, that's why I shared that one photo, because when I really started this, it was all I had was my iPhone and a gooseneck aiming at a clipboard, right? And so I would say really start simple. I have my setup and it works for me, but there's plenty of people that do virtual facilitation. It's nowhere near as complicated as mine. It does not have to be this complicated at all. And actually today, I'm not even going to use my Cintiq. I'm not going to use my drawing surface unless I have to. But you can do this on a laptop, and a lot of it is also saying, how much, what technology do I have available, and based on the technology that I have available, what does that mean I can do in terms of which modalities can I actually bring to my participants? Thank you for capturing our thoughts. You're doing a great job there. Very good. Ray, to answer your question, we're doing this on Mural. So thanks for that. I'm going to continue to share my screen, but yeah, join me on Mural if you can. Alexis says, loving this so much. Love the idea about starting small and then going big. That made me feel better, gave me permission to be a beginner and still perform. Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't mean to intimidate anybody yesterday. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. I would say if you are willing to pick up the microphone or start the Zoom call and actively facilitate people, I mean, that's hard to do. That's not easy. And that automatically sets you apart from people who are not willing to do that, right? And so don't think that you have to have the complicated technology. It's really not about the technology. It's really more about you and your personal presence. And I'm just going to encourage people, really use those sticky notes, right? See if you can, if I'm sharing anything that you think is worth recording, please use those sticky notes and copy it down. Ray says, how do you make it bigger on Mural? So you can zoom in and zoom out. There's a couple of ways to do that. One of them is to use the navigator that's in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. You should see a plus and a minus sign, and you can either click those to zoom in or zoom out. Also, if you're using a mouse that happens to have a mouse wheel, you can scroll up or scroll down, and that will zoom you in or out. Okay. So Sarah, did you have something you wanted to share? Morning percolations?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that yesterday I thought I couldn't even remember the name of the program, Mural. I couldn't even remember it. You only said it about 110 times. But today, just letting it kind of filter, I thought, oh yeah, we're back on Mural. And okay, I'm getting even more adept just with something really basic, like here's Zoom, here's Mural, okay, chat, mute, unmute, just kind of using it and forcing myself to kind of jump in and just enjoy it has been really useful. So I already feel like I know way more than I did at this time yesterday. So I'm feeling pretty grateful and really excited. I didn't even fill out the feedback form. So I'm, great that everybody did that and you've changed it for us. So I think just letting go of the, how am I going to do this, and just being in it as a participant is going to be the most helpful thing for me. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And Sarah, thank you for that. I don't know if you're noticing, but I'm taking some notes. And so I'm hopefully modeling the behavior. So really jump in there, make some Post-it notes, capture what you're hearing, and then we'll organize this stuff out. So Kim, I saw you go off mute. Is there something you wanted to share?
Yeah, one from an emotional place and one from a thinking space. The emotional place was I was feeling some fear, being in the EFP as well, and just not feeling comfortable with this, and the fear coming from a sense of incompetence, like how to navigate all of that. Getting more comfortable with it now. So I realized when I got into that place of fear, it's like, all right, I just need to go into a corner and just play with this and figure it out, or I'll like run in the other direction if it seems like it's just too far off my coming back to competency place. Was one. The other is, I guess, trying to navigate the distraction of all of the chats and the murals and all of the pieces. I find it helpful because people are allowed to engage. I also find that it's distracting to my presence, and I'm wondering if it's distracting to the physical presence.
Okay, let me open that up to the group. Is anyone else, is it kind of information overload? Is it too distracting, sensing that at all? Shana's kind of like maybe, okay. Yeah, Andrea, not at all. So why not, Andrea, if you don't mind sharing?
I played with Nero a little bit before this and kind of explored a little bit how it works, and I have worked with similar tools, and so jumping back and forth isn't as confusing. And I understand the tool we're jumping back and forth with, so it makes it easier.
Okay.
Can you
Colin, I see you went off mute. Is there something?
Yeah, I totally, to pick up on this thread, I'm noticing my own resistance to just the jaggedness of the conversation, right? And recognizing that I have to just embrace that this is a different kind of conversation than being in the room, because it just is, right? You are so masterful and so deft at, you know, all of the navigation pieces, and even still, as deft as you are, I'm like, I just don't feel like we're in a real conversation.
Well, we're going to get there. Don't worry about that. And I love that word jaggedness. Tell me more about jaggedness. It's such a juicy term.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's like, okay, we're doing the objects, but then it's, and then we get into this whole, and it's, and then we go do this, and it's, and this is not just about this training or this experience. It's my experience on almost every virtual call. What's really coming up for me is the need to train people to get ready for this experience. That if a team is not used to operating in this environment, and we just go and say, let's do a virtual facilitation, it's like we need a good hour, a couple 90 minutes to play with these tools before we try to have a conversation.
Yeah, Colin, I completely agree with you. And by the way, the thing is I've jaggedness notwithstanding, I set this up intentionally to be like a survey course where you're getting just like a bit and piece of everything. So, you know, it's just enough to whet your appetite to see what's out there. That's day one anyway. Day two, today, we're going to go pretty deep into this stuff, okay? And we're going to spend a lot longer and just happen to use Mural for this one. But to your point, I would say if you're going to do something virtually, be very careful with how much stuff you cram into that space. I mean, this is true of all of our clients. I think a lot of them want to jam 10 pounds of stuff into a 1 pound bag, you know, the vernacular. And I just think that, you know, you short some of the real insights which come in between the spaces of the structured activities, right? And I think that that's so much more so with virtual facilitation. People need time to pause, reset, get used to the tool, and so forth. So here's a question, actually, it's in chat. There's a couple of them. And Colin, I'm going to put this back on you. What might you need to do in order to become more comfortable?
Well, certainly me mastering the tools. And I think for me, it's just really viewing this as a different kind of experience to offer. It is not a replacement for, it is an additional tool that I think could be great between in-person conversations. It's just never going to replace it.
I would agree. We had a conversation during office hours yesterday about that. Remember the human and the task world. And there is something, I mean, I think if you have an intact work group that has a good experience and they know each other and the relationships are there and formed, then it's a different thing. This is, and by the way, this is one of these things, if you remember at the very beginning, one of the things that I was sensing was that a universal challenge is keeping the work alive after the facilitation, right? So we go in, we have these amazing experiences, we agree on here's what we're going to be doing, and you know, at a minimum, we would have an action list and next steps, maybe a little bit, you know, more than that, we might have a whole project plan, but then losing momentum because we get sucked up into the day-to-day work, right? I'm convinced that virtual facilitation is one of those ways that you can keep the energy going. Okay? Lisa has a tactical question. Whether using Mural or another tool, are there best practices around the length of time for a virtual facilitation session? Thinking in particular for peer-to-peer learning. I don't know if it's so much a best practice. I'll tell you just kind of the histogram, you know, the normal distribution of my virtual facilitations. The mean tends to be around 90 minutes to 120 minutes, okay? That's pretty average. More than that, and it's just too long to be staring at a screen. Less than that, and it's not enough time to really orient and get past the technology so that you can be completely engaged with the content. You want the technology to be as transparent as possible and not a barrier to people actually engaging with what you're hearing. Okay. Let's see, seeing if there's something else that's here. Okay, so we're coming to the end of morning percolations. I didn't see, let me just say this, I didn't see a whole lot of people taking notes. I'm wondering, was there something that was preventing that?
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, Doug, please.
Yeah, sorry, I'll make a quick note, if you don't mind, just as an offer to Colin and everyone on the call, as someone who's a little bit more comfortable with technology, I will tell you, I tried, the first time I ever prepped for a Zoom call, I got 2 or 3 of my colleagues on a call first, and I practiced. So my offer to you, Colin, and to everyone here is just email me if you want to jump on. I'm more than happy to be a guinea pig. I think that's what makes this so much easier.
Yeah, thanks for that. Whoa. Thanks for that, Doug. I really appreciate that. Ray, that looks like you're doing. You put these mega notes in there. No, not you? Okay. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's actually ethical, not just for virtual facilitation, but facilitation in the room. If you're going to invent a new modality, a new activity, you owe it to your participants to practice it first rather than just springing it on people, because sometimes we can get so caught up in our design that we forget about the experience. Okay. Okay, so morning percolations. Let's go up to the balcony for a second. How might you see yourselves using it? Impressions? What do you think? Sarah, I'm seeing some nods. Amanda nodding a little bit.
I think this was great. I really appreciated, this is something I actually felt that I could do at the same time. I was listening to the conversation. I could play around with my sticky notes. I was kind of perusing what everybody else had posted. It was a nice way to check in. And I mean, I just gotta say, I think this is not that I've done so much virtually, but this is the first fun virtual anything I think I've ever done. So my mind is kind of blasting here with Mural. And what's possible here with the combination of the professionalism and the fun and the interactiveness of it. I mean, there's no reason why participants can't get a lot out of this. That's just kind of what's coming up for me after seeing this and participating in this piece alone.
Cool, thank you, Sarah. Others about morning percolations. Any feedback? What do you think?
So I like the fact that at the beginning of the session, you're getting everybody involved, because it sort of sets the tone for the rest of the session, that I'm supposed to really participate in this. I'm not supposed to be a bystander.
Thanks for that, Judy. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'll just say I like morning percolations because it allows me to see people's agendas, hidden or otherwise. I mean, sometimes we set up these things where we go in and we facilitate for our clients, and whatever's percolating up for them is got nothing to do with why we're actually there for the meeting, right? And so what will happen is that having that mental load of whatever's going on for them can prevent them from being fully engaged and present on the day. So I would rather just give them a little bit of empty space to share that and get it off their chest. And sometimes as a result of morning percolations, if the energy of the room is pulling strong enough, I'll redesign the agenda on the fly to say, okay, let's address this thing, which is obviously more important than the reason that we all came together. Would you agree, right? And I put it out to the group always with that. But sometimes the things that surface with morning percolations are enough to channel the entire direction of the day. Okay. All right, so we will move on and away from morning percolations. Thank you for participating in that. And we're gonna go ahead and do a Modality Expo. Okay, now I'm gonna have you form up on me, which is to say I'll stop broadcasting my cursor, and I'm gonna summon everybody up here. So you should have just been jerked across the screen to this Modality Expo. And so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna practice brainstorming and presenting, and when we're done, you're gonna have a collection of new modalities that you can add to your virtual facilitation library. And so here's what I'm gonna ask you to do. I'd like you to create a sticky note with 3 things on it. First of all, it's got the name or the title of a virtual modality. I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. It will have a brief description of that, and then your name so that we know whose it was and who we can actually ask some questions of later. And when you've got one of those, we're going to ask you to place those modalities right here in this box to the right. Now, the dimensions of this box mean something. So at the top of the box are the things that you are personally most interested in. And so you're going to read all of the modalities, and then you're going to silently arrange them in order of interest, highest to lowest, top to bottom. And then what we're going to do is we're going to proceed to hear from the authors in that order, from highest to lowest, in the time that we have available. Okay, so be ready to present, to share a little bit about your modality, whatever it is. And so for this, we're going to practice using stickies. We're going to do a method that I think is unique to virtual facilitation, which is the silent sort, and I'll talk about that after we do it. We're going to practice presenting, going off and on mute, and then active listening, okay? So for example, yesterday, Ray shared with me like 3 or 4 different modalities that she had that could be done easily in the virtual space. One of them might be, for example, Holy Scrap, which you saw today. Another one might be Center Yourself, which you saw yesterday. So I'll give you just a little bit of time, and we'll do this, I think we can do it in less time than what's here, but that includes presentation time. So spend just a couple of minutes. Think to yourself, what might be some good virtual modalities, and go ahead and put them into this box to the right. If nothing's coming up for you, wait until other people write things, and then you can be the judge and say, okay, I think this one's a little bit more interesting. I'd really like to hear about this one first. I'm going to go ahead and go on mute, and if anyone has any questions, just please let me know. There's 2 ways to get a sticky note on Mural. You can double-click anywhere on the mural to create a sticky note. Another thing that you can do is to click the menu on the left, the menu bar that's on the left, and there's a square that looks like there's a corner bent to it, and you can just drag and drop any of those sticky notes that show up on the left side to where you want them on the mural. Okay, with just another minute left, go ahead and see if you can organize these in one nice, neat line from top to bottom. And then in the time that we have left, we'll invite the folks who wrote those stickies to give us a little bit more on each one of those. Okay. So in the time that we have before 12:50, let's go ahead and start here. And I would invite whoever wrote the sticky note, looks like it was Colin in this case. That's my big arrow, by the way. Whoever wrote the sticky note, just to go off mute and to tell us a little bit about identity clouds.
So identity clouds, everyone can hear me? Yes, Brian, thumbs up. Awesome. Is a modality that I totally stole from Ray Ringel. And what you would ask each person to do is create a sticky note that if they only had, and you can either do it forwards or backwards, but if you could describe your identity in 5 words, what would they be? And they would post those. If you could only describe your identity in 3 words, what would it be? If you had 1 word to describe your identity, what would it be? And you do it in a layered fashion. And the point isn't really to do any big debrief or to really get into it, but just to notice and to allow and invite the identities of everyone in the room to be present in the experience. So quick, easy, and a lovely way to acknowledge and connect. How'd I do, Ray?
You did great. And I just want to add that I just learned a new riff on this where you would have people do five identities or 5 values, and then you have to ask them to let go of 2. So you literally have to delete their post-it, and then you have to ask them to let go of 2 others and delete 2 more post-its. So they're left with 1. And the debrief is also the idea of like, how did it feel to have to shed those identities? What does that mean? Like, what came up for you? How did you decide? So I love when we do it in the room, we have them like throw out their or crumple up their card, but doing it virtually can be really powerful because you make it like disappear from the screen.
Thanks, Ray and Colin. How about vulnerability sticky?
So this is an opportunity to, when you're trying to create safety, or if there's not really good safety in the room, that the facilitator would post a question, like it could be, how do you feel as being a member of this team? Or what is something you haven't shared with this team before? And using the anonymity of it to have people post their answers. Like, I feel excluded from certain groups. I feel there's cliques. I feel that this is exactly what I've been looking for. And if everybody posts that on the sticky and then move to either a chat or a live discussion, so it moves from an anonymous safe place to now more of an exposing safe place to start building trust and rapport and have a discussion around the question and what people were saying. How did they react to it? What were the feelings that came up for them? What resonated with them, etc.
Thank you, Kim. And how about virtual Mad Lib on Google Doc?
That's me. I'm sorry, I didn't write my name. I have not done that before. I have not done it yet. And given that I just learned how to use a Google Doc, we'll see. But the idea is like you actually beforehand create the Mad Lib and you have your group fill in the noun, adjectives, whatever, and they're sort of building it together. And I was thinking about trying it out of like writing a mission statement or a vision statement and figuring out like what would be the backbone of it, how you could create it, and then getting your team to populate the noun, adjective, verb, blah, 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 to do a collaborative vision statement. That's how I would try it.
I love it. Cool. Thank you, Ray. Anxiety clouds. Sounds ominous.
Well, this is a little similar to the identity clouds in the sense, and also I learned this from Ray, and I've used it several times, where you also do sort of 1, 3, 5 sticky notes, but you tell folks if there's some challenge in the room, some issue, something, that is preventing people to do their best work. First, you tell them to put it on 1 sticky note, and then you get them to put it on 3 sticky notes, then you put it on 5 sticky notes, and then as you post it, you start arranging and seeing what the themes are. And I find it's pretty powerful when you can do it. And I like the idea, the concept of anonymity is an interesting idea here, because you can get some things out without actually attributing it to people, and then figuring out, sort of, I guess you can get some themes and then get people to own up to it. So I would have to think more about when to use anonymity and when not to use anonymity.
Yeah, Judy, I'd love to talk to you about that. That's something that, because I do a lot of high conflict group group work. I'd love to talk to you about that. I mean, I'll even go so far as to make sure that I'm using exactly the same sticky notes and the same pens, so that you can't actually trace back to, okay, so-and-so used the pink sticky note and so forth. All right, how about virtual asset mapping? We've heard about that one a little bit. Amanda, what have you got?
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure that we had it on the board. It's something that I like doing in person, but I think it translates pretty well to the virtual space, in that each participant has either a question or a request, something that they want to get advice or feedback on, that they in the room would post on a poster board, and folks would walk around and offer advice and resources. But I think this is something that could be easily done in Mural or in Google Docs, and is a way, I think, for folks to realize and to capitalize on the great network of the working groups that they're in.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. And Alexis, just because you're in the library, we'll go ahead and pass that. And we also went over Where Do You Stand, the virtual version of Where Do You Stand yesterday. So thank you for putting it on the board to make sure it was there. Let's do one more. How about leadership conversations, coaching versus consulting? Whose was that?
That's me. That's Sarah. Sorry, I didn't put my name there. And this is something that my mind went to. I do this with modules all the time. I always do a coaching demo so leaders can see the difference between pure coaching and consulting and or mentoring. And I usually invite people to write down all of the coaching moves, whether it's an open-ended question or sharing an observation or presence or deep listening. So I thought, how fun would this be to do this virtually? Maybe you're coaching somebody on Zoom and then you ask everybody to put up the sticky notes of what they're noticing throughout that conversation and what makes it different than the consultative type conversation. So that's just something that popped into my mind. It's totally half-baked, but I thought, ooh, I bet this could be really powerful virtually too with the sticky note idea.
That's great. Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate that. And I want to honor the rest of the ones that are on here. These are pretty cool. So we actually practiced brain writing yesterday. I love this idea. Take a picture of your shoe. I mean, that could be done as a quick icebreaker just in lieu of holy scrap. And I love the rest of these ideas. Thank you for sharing them. Okay, so let's move over here, and I'm going to have you form up on me. So I'm going to summon everyone. Okay, so we're going to move into the main activity of today. And so the first thing that we're going to do is a brainstorming activity. Now what we're going to start with is identifying a modality that you love to do in the room. Now I know we're not supposed to have our favorite modalities, but we do. You know, my favorite is open space. Any chance I get to do open space, I'll do open space. And what is it that you'd like to translate into the virtual space? And so the first step is you're going to come up with as many modalities as you can. So here's just a few that I picked as some examples for you to look at. Open Space, World Cafe, the Marshmallow Challenge, and then Visual Explorer, which is another one that I know that Ray uses. After you've got a critical mass of modalities, what I'm going to ask you to do is to form small groups of 3 to 5 to choose one of those modalities that you are going to translate into the virtual space. Okay, and the way that you're going to choose that modality is just like this. Let me have you come over here. And by the way, somebody asked, how are you doing that? I'm using, I have the option to summon people because I'm the presenter. So here's what it looked like. So let's say that we've got open space and Anne and Bob and Chad and Dee all want to work in that. You're going to grab your sticky note and you're going to place it next to that sticky. And so what that's going to tell me is that this is the group that's going to work on this thing. And so during the break, I'm going to have you decide on the groups first, and then during the break, I will set up the breakout groups in Zoom. You're going to go on break at 1 o'clock, and you're going to come back, and then you will have 25 minutes to come up with a 3-minute presentation on how to deliver your modality virtually. Okay, I have some spaces that are set up. They're over here on the right if you want to pan over and take a look at that. But I have some spaces that are set up that are dedicated for your groups. And you're going to use that space in order to pull in some sticky notes, which you can use as instructions, or maybe some images using the icons or the image library, which we haven't talked about yet, but that gives you access to a lot of full color images that you can find online in order to instruct people on your modality, whatever it is. Okay, let me go back to the instructions for a second. The hint that I'm going to give you is that the purpose of this is really to practice good virtual collaboration skills. And we've been touching on those best practices already. Do not get hooked by the task. You're going to have to say, good enough, push on. Okay, this is not going to be perfect instructions for how to deliver a modality. The other thing is that I will be available over the course of those 25 minutes. I'll be jumping in and out of your Zoom breakout groups, and I will also keep an eye on the group chat. You have the option at any time if you need to leave the breakout and come back into this main space, you can do that. And if I'm not in a breakout, I'll see that. And if you need any help, I'm happy to dive into one of your breakouts and offer some advice. Okay. So what are you going to practice? You'll practice applying the best practice of virtual facilitation that you've already learned, collaborating and actually presenting virtually and together. Translating the in-the-room modalities to the virtual space, and you just started modeling that a second ago, where some of you were coming up with ideas to say, hey, this is something that I do in the room, here's how I might do it virtually, and also practicing active listening. Okay, now that was a lot of instructions. Right now, the task is to brainstorm as many modalities as you can that you're interested in converting into the virtual space, okay? But before I let you go, to create those modalities and then drag your yellow sticky notes with your name onto it in order to form up your groups, what are your questions about what we're going to be doing for the next good chunk of time? Any questions?
Question. If our modality would involve breakouts, are you going to teach us how to do that?
I'm going to show you how to do that.
Okay.
Teaching is a different thing. Here's what I would say, Colin. It doesn't have to be nth level instructions.
Got it.
You would say, and at this point, put people into breakouts. Make sense? Cool. It doesn't have to be a screenshot, play-by-play how-to. Good question. Thank you for that. Other questions? Yeah, Alexis, you're going to have the same role that I'm going to have, which is to observe and sort of float in and out. If you'd like to, actually, yeah, let me give you a sticky note. If you want to be a fly on the wall and observe, you can do that too. And I would say, just do me a favor, pick a group that doesn't have a whole lot of people in it, okay? All right, so the time is yours. Go ahead and create some sticky notes in the space down towards the bottom with modalities that you would like to convert and transform into the virtual space. Go ahead and do that now. Rebecca asked, do you want us to go to the modality that we wrote, or you can go to any of them? Go to any of them. And by the way, I'm noticing that case studies appears twice. So you might want to pick one or the other.
Brian, I lost myself.
You're right there.
Where? Where?
I mean, on the phone. I actually can't tell where you are.
It's so deep.
Do you know which animal you are?
No.
Okay.
Wait.
You're the one that's on, so whatever the animal is on the far left, that's you. Down at the bottom.
I'm on the far left. The hippo? Am I a hippo?
You sure are. Let's see. And I'm going to follow you. So according to this, you're right in the, did you type something and then lose it?
I think I deleted my identity. But I found a really cute kid.
So according to this, I think you're, did you just, no, that wasn't you. Oh, thank you. Build a duck. Who said that? Oh, come on, fess up. Who did build a duck? That's one of my favorites.
Can you recreate my identity?
Sure. I don't know what that means.
That was Andrea.
I can, Andrea, ah, you're awesome. Okay, no wonder. I should have known better.
And Brian, I can't find myself either.
Okay, so let me do this. I'm going to pull everybody to form up on me, and that way you'll all be sharing the same view. Now you can zoom in, okay? In fact, let me do that for you. When you say you can't find your, oh, you mean your name up at the top? Ah, okay, Ray. All right, Joan, I was instructions unclear. So Joan, I'm putting yours right next to vision circles. Ray, I'm creating a new one for you right next to Joan's.
The other problem I have is I can't really see it. I mean, it's so tiny to read. I've had that problem a couple times. I don't know if you have other people that struggle with that.
So Joan, that has to do with the zoom that you're using, which is to say the like how zoomed in you are. And you have a couple of options to adjust the zoom. If you're using a PC, you can, if you're in Mural, hold the control key and try pushing the plus and the minus sign. That will zoom you in and out. Another thing that you can do is using the navigator, which looks like a map in the lower right-hand corner. There's a plus and minus sign that's right next to a percentage. You can drag that slider left and right to zoom in and out. And then the third thing that you can do is if you have a mouse with a scroll wheel on it, you can scroll up and down to zoom in and out.
Okay, so I might be doing it wrong, but the control plus minus doesn't do anything. And I don't have a mouse. And I also don't see the world slider. Weird.
Okay. Those are the three options that I have for you. If you would like to take a look at my, hang on just a second.
Brian,
Colin, did you go off mute? Did you have an idea?
Yeah, I think she may be clicking in the Zoom and not on the web.
That's a good point. Joan, did you join by Zoom or did you join through your browser in Mural?
No, that's my problem. Thank you. Perfect, Colin. That answered like
Nice, Colin.
questions I had. Perfect.
Okay. All right, thanks for that. So it looks like we're coming to closure. Joan, if you're looking at this, where would you like to be? I'm going to speed things up just a little bit. If you're speaking, I can't hear you, Joan.
Problem is I can't really read it. I guess, I guess maybe the case studies.
Okay, so I'll move you over here. Okay, so it looks like our groups are in open space using breakouts. We've got Susan, Shana, Kim, Rebecca, Judy, and Ray ran off. In vision circles, we have Ray and Sarah and Alexis. Lego, Build Me a Duck, we've got Irit and Andrea. And then case studies consultancies, we've got Joan, Amanda, Lisa, and Doug. Colin, can I ask you to join a different group just because you're the kind of the odd man out? I would love to see that one. Thank you. Okay, so he's going to do build a duck. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 breakouts. Okay, perfect. I'm going to start a 5-minute timer. So let's go ahead and do a 5-minute break. In that time, I'm going to go ahead and set up the breakouts. And I'll see you at around 1:06. Okay. Turn it on back now. So welcome back, everyone. How did it go? How were your breakout groups? Pretty good? Thumbs up. Okay. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the presentations. And if you're on Mural, I will ask you to form up on me. So summoning everybody together. Group 1, open space. Let me turn it over to you.
Susan, I'm happy to take a stab, but I think I'm the least qualified of the group. But so we said that the whole group brainstorm topics for discussion on Zoom. Then create different Zoom links for everyone to join whichever group they wish through Google Docs. And you can leave your group anytime you want by clicking on the different Zoom group. And we can put a timer on for each round, say 20 minutes and 20 minutes, and ask people to rejoin the main space at the end of each round. And then somebody can capture the notes on Mural or Google Docs.
And I was on mute too. Thank you very much, Susan. Any feedback, questions? Colin, you went off mute? No? So I love this. Open space is one of the things that I've been trying to figure out how to crack virtually, because I think that the potential is just so powerful. I will say, if anybody is familiar with the off-the-shelf version of open space technology by Harrison Owen, he spends a lot of time in that book talking about the newsroom, which at best is a very awkward thing to have to deal with. He talks about bringing in desktop computers and things. And I've done open spaces recently where it's entirely bring your own device, and everyone is working off of one shared Google Doc in lieu of the newsroom. And if you're familiar with open space, one of the things that they like to do is to start an open space with the front and back cover of the proceedings, which are empty until you fill them up, right? That's classic open space technology. And with everyone compiling their notes at the same time in Google Docs, there's none of that late night into the night compiling and transcribing that has to happen with traditional open space. So thank you for taking this one on. I'm wondering, so let me, you have a little bit of time. We're going to try to keep this to 3 minutes each, by the way. I should have said that at the beginning. What was the experience like working collaboratively? How did it go?
I think at the beginning we tried to, there was trying to figure out what we were doing. And then at some point we went from discussing it into the task of knowing that we need to present something in steps. We sort of switched, but I felt like it was pretty smooth. Once they need to be establishing sort of a rapport at the beginning and establishing ourselves as a group.
Okay, so establishing rapport and then moving into task. Thank you. Anybody else from this group want to reflect on your experience?
I was just going to add, I thought it was a good amount of time. We could have probably handled 1 or 2 minutes less, but we didn't have loads of extra time. It was spot on.
Okay.
I would also just add that it felt really natural. Like it didn't feel like we were working at a distance. I think like it just felt like we were working on something together in real time. So it was probably one of the most interactive group experiences I've had on Zoom.
Great, Shana.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is that it was fun. I think it's a fun way to collaborate. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to shift over and hear from group 2. Again, you're going to have about 3 minutes to present. Walk through the challenge that you took on and whatever your solution was, and be prepared to do a little bit of reflection afterwards.
Okay, well, this is Ray, and we had the task of future vision circles, and right from the start, we realized that we had to abort the mission, that if we really wanted to do future vision circles and stay true to it, you would have to have 3 people in a room and then come back to the main room, and then 3 people go to a different breakout room and 3 people do that. And like, it was just too much and we were getting stuck. And then decided, well, like how, in classic design thinking, like what could it be? Like what could it look like? So we decided to still preserve the idea of 3 people, that 3 people would go in a breakout room, but you would stay with those 3 people and only rotate with those 3 people. You're not going to be telling it to 6 different people and rotating in a large room. And once we decided that was okay, then it was like really liberating to think about all the things that we could do in terms of how to come up with a future vision if you're not worried about the technology of bopping around all over the place every 3 minutes. So what we did is 1 person will go at a time, and you still have 3 times to share your future vision. The first time you are going to do it through a picture or a series of pictures. So we were very excited to discover the images on the left side, and we just pulled some for examples about like feeling centered next year, or growing our business, or breaking through some problem, or ascending a mountain, or whatever it is that you would use pictures to describe your future vision, however many you want. Then like the chime chimes, and round 2 goes, and that person goes for a second time to explain their future vision, but they have to do it in the somatic domain. And we decided that they would have to hold a somatic pose or a series of poses for up to 90 seconds that represents your future vision and how you want to feel. Now, for some people that will be a 10-second hold, and for other people it might be a minute, but you have to like act it out in your body, and it's silent. And then the third time that you do your future vision, you bring words to it. You speak your future vision in 90 seconds or less. And that could be like a combination of round 1 or 2, but it's the idea of like make it generative through language. And then of course we seal the future vision with our high five, which you can see there. We found that icon. And then the next person goes 3 times. So it's not purist exact future vision, but we felt like it was a really good modification of future vision to the technological space.
Cool. Thank you, Ray. I love how, and that's the big game, right? It's to take a modality that and say, given the limitations, or in some ways the freedom of the virtual space, how do I translate this into such a way that it makes sense?
And I want to give props
to
Alexis and Sarah, because I only joined that group because in a million years I would have no idea how to make future vision circles virtual, and they both were really great about like this idea of like, well, what could it be?
Very cool. And I love that you brought in the somatic pose. You know, that's something, especially with virtual facilitation, is that oftentimes we get disconnected from our bodies because it's, you know, there's the screen, there's the audio, and it's all entirely in your head. So bringing in the kinesthetic, the somatic, I mean, yeah, very important to bring that in. Even just, you know, anything that you can do with that, even if it's just, you know, stand up for a second. That's great. I love it. So what was the experience like working collaboratively? How did it go?
I thought it was great. It was really a lot of fun. And in full disclosure, I thought, I'll be evil and put future vision circles in there because nobody could ever do that virtually. But I thought, well, we got the guru here, so maybe she'd have some ideas. And she actually jumped in the group, and here we are. So it was a lot of fun. It was actually pretty easy. And I was just noticing going through it that it was really great to have that smaller group breakout session. So I actually felt less timid about jumping in and cutting somebody off, and had a little more airtime too to get creative and think big. So it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I also just want to,
and
go
yeah,
ahead, Alexis.
I actually learned a lot too, just even about Mural, because we were showing each other where things were, and it made me think about Doug's offer, which is very gracious, to practice with him, because it really did make me feel confident, a lot more confident moving around in Mural.
Okay, and thanks for that. And I think it's somewhat analogous to swimming, right? You can tell people how to swim until you're blue in the face, but it's not until you actually jump in the pool that you actually get a feel for it. And it's a very intuitive muscle memory thing to say, okay, I know how to pull this in and I know how to do that. And the quicker you just jump in and start doing it, the faster you build that conscious competence, like we were talking about before. Anyone else want to reflect on the experience? Ray, Alexis, I know you're in the library. Any other reflections that you've got? Sarah?
I just wanted to add to Alexis that it felt so good to be able to be really clunky with other people. Like we were like all over each other and the pictures and the writing and like, but there was no problem with it. We were just like literally figuring it out together. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, look what we just did. So I also like the idea of like as if you're doing this with groups as ground rules, that like you encourage clunkiness and it doesn't have to be so neat because that's going to be part of the learning process. And so I like the idea of like setting that intention when you're doing things virtually.
And I was surprised at actually how much we could get done. I thought, oh my, this could be a 2-hour conversation, right? So I was really surprised at what we could come up with pretty quickly.
Nice. Thanks for that, Sarah. I'm going to have to say encourage clunkiness. That's going to be a new ground rule going forward. Rebecca has a balcony question. At what point in a virtual facilitation agenda do you find it works best to do breakouts? Any point to avoid? That's an interesting question. I don't have an immediate answer. I'd like to think about that and get back to you on that one. I'm wondering if anybody else has some thoughts on that.
It depends on what you want to use the breakout room for. If you're doing a breakout for an icebreaker, just to get participants comfortable with each other, that's something that you can do up front. But if you want them to come up with some kind of an answer or product or something out of it, then you probably want to get them a little comfortable with each other before you break down into breakout rooms.
And Ray says not to be end. I think I like the idea of people ending together as a whole. Yeah, so Andrea, that echoes what you said. I would agree with that too. Okay. All right, let's move on to group 3. So Joan, Amanda, Lisa, Doug, you have 3 minutes. Please let us know what your challenge was that you took on and what was the solution that you came up with.
All right, well, I had the pleasure of working with Joan, Lisa, and Doug, and we were tackling virtual case studies. And this is something that at least a few of us have really enjoyed doing in person, so we're excited to try to tackle it for the virtual space. We really found a lot of synergy between what you would do in person and what you would do virtually. For us, I think a lot of the considerations were around any pre-work that the facilitator needs to do to sort of set up the groups for success, and really make a determination about what technology you feel comfortable using. So you could sort of pivot in a couple of ways depending on whether or not you wanted to use Mural or Google Docs. So on pre-work, things we were thinking about, choosing presenters or groups ahead of time, have each presenter or group do an introductory statement sort of as a do now activity, so a statement of the problem that they're trying to solve, And then in the tech, whether it's in Mural or in Google Docs, set the ground rules and guidelines and add in some sample questions to help move the conversation could be helpful. But step one is really having the facilitator create the breakout rooms in Zoom. That's the easiest way I think we found to set out those groups. And then the timing is really the key part of this modality. So really having the timing follow really closely to what it would be in person. You could also have the presenter hit mute during the duct tape session to really solidify that duct tape component. But I just included one of the sample timings. But the one thing I like about this is that it's so flexible. If you're using Mural, there's that awesome timer function, and so that could be a really great way to keep folks on track. Otherwise, you may want to have the facilitators popping in and out of the groups, the smaller groups, to ensure that the timing is rolling the way it's supposed to. We also discussed after a case study, especially if you're using this to teach the modality, to bring folks back together as a big group to discuss and to debrief, and then go back into breakout sessions. I think those were all of the big things. Joan, Lisa, Doug, what did I miss? What should the group know about our discussion?
Amanda, thanks for doing that. And it was great working with all three of you. I would just add that we did find this fairly easy to do, and that I think you can go high and low on technology with this. The breakout rooms might be all you need. You might not even need to use Mural, because the person who's the presenter, their notes could be on a piece of paper sitting at their desk. But you can push this a little further and have people using Mural to take notes and so forth.
Joan, Lisa?
I was just going to add, I felt like Sarah said that it was so much easier to work in a small group. You know, you were able to participate more and have it go more at the speed of your understanding than a larger group. It was fun.
Okay. Thanks for that. Yeah, and I like what you did with the just thinking through the nuances of the case study. And this is, as you said, keeping it as light as possible. Mural's great, and there's a bit of a learning curve to it. You know, people are more used to Zoom and looking at somebody else's PowerPoint. So if it was nothing more than sharing the case study via PowerPoint, and I like how you broke it down into the introduction, clarification, and so forth. If it was nothing more than giving people the case study through a technology that they know, like the PowerPoint, and then, okay, we're going to go into breakout groups for discussion, come back with your ideas. Lighter is better, because number one, people are more confident in it, and number two, chances are it's more stable. Even Mural, as good as it is, it has its problems. Sarah says, Brian, can you talk about how much of this needs to be set up before the actual facilitation, your slides, et cetera? This is a really good point, Sarah. So I think that this is something that applies not just to virtual facilitation, but to live and in the room facilitation. I've had this discussion with Ray before. One of the things that I believe very strongly is that 99% of my work should be done before I ever get into the room. And so I'm seeing a lot of nods there. So I've done my data gathering, I've done my interviews with my not just my sponsors, but also my participants. I've thought through the ins and outs of the flow of the activities. And, you know, I've designed everything, and that most of my work is done so that when I show up, I can appear very natural and that this whole thing is orchestrated. So I would say it's roughly analogous to that. If you take a look at what I did for today, really last night in designing day 2, you know, I had to put a little bit of work into this, but it's about the same as setting up a PowerPoint. So it's really not that hard to do once you know how to pull in different boxes and sticky notes and things. Sarah, thanks for the opportunity on that.
Hey,
so
Brian,
back to group 3 before we move on. Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
Super quick technical question. You had to assign us to groups based on what you saw in Mural, correct?
Correct.
So you did that in Zoom. If we were to take people in and out of the case studies, because that was one of the things we talked about was, hey, do one case study, then pull everybody back. How hard is it to just put them, is there a do it again key?
Yes, There's a do it again key. So I could, with 2 clicks, I could have you back into those same breakout groups, okay? You don't lose that. And there's a couple of different options. We can save this for office hours, but I can show you some of the nuances of breakout groups. I will say, just quick plug for Zoom. I've used WebEx, I've used Skype, I've used Adobe Connect, and I've used Tandberg, and one other one that I can't remember off the top of my head. I find Zoom is the best one. We'll do office hours, and I'll talk you through how to do breakout sessions. Okay, so back to the group. Joan, Amanda, Lisa, Doug, what was it like working collaboratively? Any reflections that you have?
I think I'll just reiterate that it was, I think, really nice to work in the small breakout sessions. It felt really interactive. We were also, I think, a collegial group and pretty collaborative in asking each other for ideas. So I had a really great time working with my group.
I'd say ditto to Amanda, and also really appreciate that we started by zooming out as someone who is newer to facilitation to really explore and make sure we were on the same page about what this looks like in person before diving into how to transition it to a virtual space.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and move us on. So group 5, let's see. Where did your little people go? Okay, well, group 5, it's over, or I'm sorry, group 4. What am I saying? Group 4, Lego Serious Play, Build a Duck. So 3 minutes, please share the challenge that you took on, and what was your solution to that?
So we took on an in-person exercise that Lego Serious Play uses. It's called Build a Duck. They give each participant the same number and the same type of blocks. They're given exactly the same thing and told build a duck out of it. And so each person has to build a duck, and depending on what you, how you build it, it can tell things about yourself. It can also show that the diversity of the room, because depending on the size of the class, there are millions of combinations that you could make to make a duck. So you might get some that are not, none of them are the same. So we wanted to see if there was some way to translate that to the virtual facilitation environment.
So what we did was we created, with Brian's assistance at first, created a play area for each person. And what we discovered is that you can just use sticky notes. I was going to try to share, Brian. I'm wondering if that would be helpful so that I can show people.
I think it might be just enough for us to take a look on Mural, if you wanted to do it that way.
Sure, yeah. So we created a square for everyone's play areas, and then we pulled over on the left-hand side here, there are options for sticky notes. If you click the text thing, it shows you 3 different shapes. And so we just pulled different shapes and colors, and then we layered them over so you could create an eyeball-looking thing here. And then if you group all of those together, you can actually create what is known as a play area. And this keeps everything all together, and you can just duplicate that as many times as you need and rename the play area, and voila, you are ready to go. So I can try to maybe show you that, but I'm not sure you're going to be able to see what my cursor is doing. So here I just created a play area, right, with a square. It's not going as smoothly as I had hoped because it's not, because that's how.
So we're going to be patient with each other and the technology.
Right. So here we are with a little square. And then you can size the square however you want. And then you go here into stick to shapes and sticky notes. And I'm going to pull, I want an orange one. I'm going to pull that one in here. Resize it, and then you can use this sticky note, and then instead of doing that 19 times, you can just duplicate by doing Control D. And then to create a play area, if you select all of this, and I do that on my Mac by doing this, and then you click, and of course not working because I selected too much. You get a little command if you do it correctly, and Brian, maybe you can help me here, but when you try to group stuff, you can actually create a play area.
Mm-hmm. So the way you do that on the PC, I can't help with the Mac, but the way you do that on a PC, there you go,
yep,
is to right click on multiple objects and it says organize into an area. There you go.
And that'll keep everything contained in the area for Joan to play with and make her duck. So you can just create the one, duplicate it, rename them, and you'll have a bunch of duck things ready to be built.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, thank you for that. And by the way, thank you for giving me the opportunity to just speak briefly about areas. So areas in Zoom are roughly equivalent to clusters, or if you like, affinity clusters, or if there's another word for them. I think as many facilitators are out there, they have their own words for it, but it's a group of different ideas. That's an area. Now, one of the things that you can do in Mural that's pretty neat is that you can actually turn on dot voting sessions. I won't do that. I'll just tell you about it. So that you can have people dot vote certain clusters and areas and individual ideas. And so that's what areas are for. I really like how you've taken areas and turned them into play areas. That's pretty cool. Okay, so from the group, what was the experience like collaborating together? How did it go?
It was good. I didn't hate it.
Didn't hate it.
I loved the people. I wasn't sure about the process, but really it's just a question of getting familiar with the tools. And like Ray said earlier, what I noticed is kind of the overlapping of people doing stuff actually didn't bother me like I thought it would, the way I think it would in a live room if people are like grabbing the same toys, so to speak, that it just feels different online.
Cool. Others? Kim, Andrea, Irit? Kim, oddly, you're off mute, but I can't hear you for some reason. I'm not sure why. Are you using your phone? Could that be it? That's very strange. I'm not sure, Kim. You could try in the lower left-hand corner where the little phone thing is, try playing around with some of the options that are in that menu. But anyone else from that group, Andrea or Reed, well, Kim's troubleshooting.
I think it worked really well. It was a small enough group and different enough people. Not everybody knew what the in-person exercise was, so getting together and talking about what it was in person and then what it could be virtually was a lot of space for brainstorming.
Cool. All right, thanks for that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up here. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to have you form up on me just so a few other things to have. And I know we're coming to the end. So few resources for you. Here are, if you want to take this deeper, farther, faster, there is a class that's at least local to our area. Marcia Acker teaches a virtual team workshop, and she's an agile facilitator, does a lot of training. Also, there's facilitating virtual collaboration, my class. I work with Malgosia Kosteka. We work for the Grove together. I'm an associate of theirs. And we have a week-long version of more of this stuff. You'll see some of the things that we covered, but most of the things, if you do facilitating virtual collaboration, it's a different material altogether. Rachel Smith, she's the architect and the designer of facilitating virtual collaboration. She maintains a couple of blogs out there. And you've seen a couple of templates used, most notably the meeting startup. And I'd push you in the direction of the Grove consultants to check out some of their other templates that they have available. And then there's me. So my blog is Think with Ink. That is all things facilitation related. I love just pushing modalities out. That's what I do. Some people collect baseball cards. I like to collect modalities. And you can always find me, Brian at lizardbrain.com. Okay. All right, so one more thing we're going to do. Let's see how this went. So if you would, please go to menti.com, and you can do this on your device, your phone. You can open up a web browser to do this. menti.com, and you're going to go to, when it asks you for the code, 930430, and the results are going to show up a little bit differently than they did yesterday, and I apologize for going just a minute late. We were a little late getting started. I hope you'll give me just another 60 seconds to do this, because this is helpful to me. I take your feedback very seriously, and I had some great, as I said, I had some great feedback yesterday, and I applied as much as I could within the realms of what's physically possible.
Can you say the code
so
again?
the code is actually, it's at the top of my screen. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Hold on, let me do that. How did I miss that? So the top of my screen, which is 930430. Okay. Longer session, would like more discussion. Okay, and we will go into office hours. I did have a couple of requests from some folks who couldn't be here for office hours to record them. So if you would like to stick around for office hours, just know I will be recording that. Excellent, love the interactive components. Thank you, thank you. Tough to do in a short time. Yeah, maybe we'll do it. What do you think, Ray? Maybe next time we'll make it 3 days. Who knows? Let's see. The code is 930430. 930430. Longer session, more behind the curtain. Fantastic. Day 2 was fantastic. Make it interactive. Make us post breakouts. Respond to polls. Unused to talk. Appreciate office hours. Super 2 days. More time translating in real life modalities into virtual, definitely. And agenda so we know what tools we're using. Are there any pre-workshop links that could play with? Totally. I mentioned Mural, but didn't know what it was at the time. Some more explanation, fair enough. I'll do that. Work well with a small audience, keep it small. Yeah, definitely. I think 18 was a pretty good number, and maybe we could do it a little bit smaller. Okay, so thank you for the feedback. Technology was hard. Wish I hadn't missed the opening. Lost while not on Mural. Longer break. Yeah, I like to think of 5 minutes as a one function break. All right, cool. Well, thank you all for this feedback. Let me go ahead and open up office hours. And again, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that. Ray, anything you want to say to close? Yeah?
Just that you're amazing. We learned so much from you. And thank you to everyone and to Brian. It was really, really so great to be the student.
And thank you, Ray. I know it's hard to be on the other side of the, the other side of the room every now and then. Okay, so this is some great feedback. I'm going to take all of this into consideration for next time. Awesome. All right, office hours. I'm going to keep the recording going, but anything else that we haven't covered, anything that you'd like to see, I can do breakouts. I'll show you how that works if you like. So Ray's giving the nods, so I'm seeing some nods. Okay. So I'm going to need to stop my share, and you'll have to tell me if this actually works or not, okay? So let me do this. Bear with me for just a second. And let's do a new share, and I'm going to try to just share everything that's on my screen. So right now you should see my screen as you see it. Is that right? You can see also you've got the Brady Bunch view on the right, and then you've got my Zoom controls on the left, correct? Okay. No? Yes? Yes. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to mouse over more. Andrea, can you see this? You're shaking your head no.
I only see the Brady Bunch view on the right side, nothing else.
That's it? Rats. Okay, I may have to talk it through then if I can't actually do this. So let me do it this way. I'm going to do, I'm going to start the breakout. Let's try it like this. I'm going to take a snip of my controls so you can see what it looks like from my perspective. How about that? Can you see that now? Yes, I'm seeing some nods, and I need to move it around so I can actually see your faces. So what it looks like for me, I'm going to slide this over just so I can see you and the controls at the same time, and I'll do a new share just so that you're not going to, get nauseous and have to take your Dramamine for all of this, because I know what this is like when you're jumping around like this. Okay, so what it looks like for me is you start, if you're the presenter, you can have this little button down at the bottom that says, breakout rooms. And you can either assign breakout rooms like this. If I were to click on group 3 like that, I would get a list of names right here. And I could say, okay, I'm going to have Kim and Ray and Sarah and so forth, right? And that would allow me to manually select the individuals that are going into each breakout room. Prior to this, it asks me, how many breakout rooms do you want to have? And so in this case, I did 4 because that's how many groups that we have when we did the self-selection and voted with your feed. So it tells me how many different rooms do you want to have, then I can just manually go in. Another thing that I can do is I can also put you in at random, which is kind of nice because if you ever have to do that thing where you have to number off in a room, sometimes just assigning it randomly makes it a lot easier, a lot cleaner. And it doesn't feel like you're being, the last person picked for kickball, so to speak. So you can open all rooms, you can add a room. There's a couple of options in here. One of the options that I like to have is to say, when I manually close the rooms, hopefully you all got a notice 60 seconds before those rooms closed and you saw a timer that started to tick down. So I like to do that rather than just jerking people back in, okay? And then at any point, I can recreate the rooms. So for example, that group that was working on case studies, let's say that I wanted the breakout groups to be persistent and consistent. I could just click that right there and bam, you would all go back into your same breakout groups with just a couple of clicks without me having to do a whole lot, okay? Any questions that you all have about breakout rooms and how they work on Zoom? Okay, it's very intuitive. Zoom is really easy. They also have some amazing online videos that will walk you through step by step on how to do this stuff, okay? All right, what else? Office hours.
I wanted, if you could address the use of anonymity versus people saying who they are.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. So there is a way that you can, well, do you mean in Zoom or Mural? Because it's a lot easier in Mural.
Probably in Mural.
Yeah, so it's automatically anonymous, right? Because you've got like the anonymous hippo and so forth. It's only if you actually take the time to sign in with your name and email address that I would know who was who. And like that one time when I was chasing Ray, I was like, which one are you? Are you the hippo or the spider, right? And so even me as a host, I don't know that stuff. But Judy, maybe there's a more nuanced question.
Well, my question is not the mechanics of how to do it. It's really, from your experience, when is it best to keep people anonymous versus having them identify themselves?
Okay, that's a really good point. So if I'm dealing with strong power dynamics in the room, and if I'm concerned about the psychological safety of the container, which is to say the inclusion that I've tried to set up. So for example, I do a lot of work with the Army. And one of the things, through no fault of their own, but they have a very hierarchical command and control structure. And it can be really intimidating if the commander is in the room, okay, right next to the private. And if I really want the best ideas, I'm going to try to bring in those ideas unadulterated and anonymously so that the private feels free to speak his mind in front of the commander, okay? And so the things that I'm going to look for is, if I'm concerned about anonymity, it would be, is there a power dynamic or possibly a conflict dynamic in the room that would make it so that I want this to be anonymous versus not, right? And that's something that would come out of my data gathering at the front end. As I'm doing my interviews, as I'm talking to participants, hopefully I'm asking questions that will give me a lens into that kind of culture to see if it needs to be anonymous or not. There's simple things that you can do. So I like to take notes on stickies, right? Facilitator's going to facilitate. So I've got all my sticky notes here. One of the things that I like to do is, if I'm brainstorming, is that I'll pass out the same color stickies to everybody, and even go so far as to do the same pens. And I might pose a question. What are your top 3 ideas to solve this problem? And then what I would do is I would collect all those sticky notes from everybody around the room and then like physically shuffle them in front of people so that they don't know who's saying what. That's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is to just have the leader speak last and say, we're going to go, going back to the Army, we're going to go lowest to highest rank in that order. So that way the first guy to speak, right, is not influenced by, the person who carries the most weight in the room. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's helpful. Many years ago, I would facilitate in these collaborative environments where you would be in the room, but you'd be behind computers, and you would do that sort of anonymous thing.
Yeah, I think it's my preference to be authentic and to have adult-to-adult conversations. but depending on what's going on with the culture of the group, you may not, I mean, it may be best to bring a little bit of safety through anonymity.
Great, thanks.
Good question, thanks for that. Others, what's percolating up? Office hours.
I gotta run.
Yeah, Judy, what do you got? Oh, see ya, bye. Kim, I saw you go off mute. Is your audio working now? No, okay, so let's troubleshoot this real quick. What you can do is you can actually shift from using your computer to your phone. Do you have a phone handy that you can use? Yes, okay. So if you go over to the lower left-hand corner where you see the little phone, right? It's down here. There's a caret that you can click on, and it will bring up a sub-menu and for audio options. And one of those should be switch to phone. And if you see that, go ahead and click on it, and it will give you a series of prompts to follow on your phone. And it will transfer your audio right over, and hopefully that'll work. There could be 12 things that are going on with your microphone right now, and it would take a while to troubleshoot them all. Anything else? Andrea, Rebecca, you're here to the bitter end.
I don't have any more questions. I'm just staying on.
Okay. If there's nothing else, Kim, did you have something? Just give me a thumbs up if you had something. No? Okay, so we'll hang out just for a second to see if we can get your audio to working if you've got a question. So I'll leave the recording on for a second. But Rebecca, Andrea, if there's anything else I can help out with?
My question, just a second.
I'm just seeing some things on chat around what's next, how to get more. Which I think you put in the resource.
Yeah, so there are others. There's that resource slide that I had. The resources you listed, are they video, self-study, or one-on-one options? Okay, so let me go ahead and pull Mural up again so I can show you exactly what's what. And I'll share my screen. Okay, so this actually, all of these, so the Team Catapult and then the Grove class, they are all exactly like this one. They're facilitated and taught virtually, which I think kind of makes sense, right? So these two are classes. Rachel Smith's blog is a blog. You know, you can go and she's got some amazing tips and tricks there. I use a lot of her language. For example, we're going to be patient with ourselves and the technology. That's a Rachel Smith thing. One sip pauses. That's a Rachel Smith thing. Saying we go into this with an air of curiosity. I wonder what's going to break today. That's a Rachel Smith thing. So I got a lot of my language from her blog and from a class that she used to teach. Okay. The visual templates. It's a collection of intellectual property. And one of those, again, is like the meeting startup, which had the river on it. And so they have those digitally, and I've got the link right there on how to get there. And I'll share all these, by the way, so you don't have to look for it. But you can use them digitally, as I have. They also have them big and on paper. And then Think with Ink is another blog, and so you can sign up for that. I don't charge anything for it. I never sell your data. And if you want just some free modalities coming your way, you can sign up for Think with Ink. And then this last thing here, that's an email. That's me. So Rebecca, did you have something?
Can you hear me yet?
Yes,
Oh,
Kim.
yay.
I think I can. Let's try that again. All right. You did it. You fixed it.
So, so I guess my question is like training on how to, how do I get to Mural? How do I, if I want to create a virtual activity like we just did and I need some help with it, what are there one-on-ones? Are there like YouTube videos or tutorials on the how-tos around those, like actual working the technology?
Yeah, I would be happy. Let me say it this way. It depends on what kind of learner you are. If you learn based on video, there's tons of amazing Mural videos out there. I'm completely self-taught. Well, I should say entirely off of the Mural website. Has a bunch of videos on how to do that. So does Zoom, by the way, right? Zoom has got an amazing catalog. If you want to set up breakout groups, here's how to do it, right? And I was reviewing that like last night before I set you up today, okay? So if you're a video learner, if you learn off of video, I would say go to the Mural website, go to the Zoom website, and there's instructions. Here's how to do A, B, C. If you prefer to have like this kind of interaction, I'm happy to help out, right? If it's the kind of thing where you're like, you know, I've got this thing, it's how do I set this up real quick? I would be happy to just jump in and do that, okay?
And being respectful of your time, do you do one-on-one coaching for like the really slow learners?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Okay, that was
yeah, I do.
that was my question also. So would just email you to
Yeah.
ask about that? Okay.
Sure, and I'm very happy to. I mean, one of the things that I love to do is to make other facilitators successful, because you know this is the chosen work. I really believe that. You know, I think that facilitators do more towards really making the world a better place and peace building than just about anybody else. So anything that we can do to help each other out, right? So yeah, I'm happy to do that, and I love geeking out on design and approaches and modalities and things. So yeah, just send me a note.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And invite me to your next virtual facilitation.
I'm in.